Hello, my name is Jane, and I'm a developer advocate at UiFlow. I was an engineer previously at Stack Overflow for a few years, and today I'm here with Jess, who's been a developer for 6 years by way of a multitude of other careers. When she's not coding, you can find her walking her dogs at an art exhibit or cycling around town. Nice to meet you, Jess.
Nice to meet you, Jane.
I wanted to start out the interview by asking you a little bit about what got you into tech and how you found this career.
Yeah. It's been a path with lots of different bumps and twists and turns. But yeah, I actually went to school for communications and cultural studies. I thought I would, maybe work in advertising or work in a museum, who knows? But I ended up a few years after that preparing myself to go to law school, and the idea was to become a lawyer that specialized in tech and working in that space. So that was always, I think, the new technologies and media and all of that stuff was always like at the center of my interests, like no matter what I was doing for school or what I was like working in. And then a little before I was like due to head off to law school, I was like, yeah, some of my friends and I have been talking, and they're like, yeah, like maybe you want to try like a few other things before like dedicating yourself to this path. Like it's pretty rigorous and time intensive. And yeah, I had some friends who were developers and who went and did coding boot camps that took, just a few months. And I had done like some light coding in the past. I was like, yeah, okay, there's a lot of jobs in this area. Instead of me taking a look at technology from like a bystander sort of point of view, like I would be making stuff myself, which was like really interesting to me. And yeah, I just sort of took a leap of faith. And I was like, you know what? Let's try this one last adventure, see how it goes. I don't really have anything to lose. And if I decide I don't really like it or it's not for me, well, it was just a few months. I learned a new skill. I met some new people, and now I'll just go to law school. I'll be on my merry way. And then sort of like to even my own surprise, things sort of worked out. I ended up really liking it. And then straight out of my coding bootcamp, I got hired by Shopify. And yeah, I'm still there all these years later.
That's great. It sounds like you had a really good attitude towards being kind of open to whatever was going on.
Yeah, I think so. I think it helped to be just open, not stressed about it. Like, let's just try it.
Yeah. But there was also like a definite interest in tech and digital spaces.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you feel like coming from a boot camp has influenced the trajectory of your career?
I think the boot camp side of things, because it goes by so quickly, and everything, at least for me, everything was really new. Like I really had no background or like much background in coding itself. It really, and we paired every single day. That's how we learned and how we did projects. So for me, the collaborative aspect was really important in my learning curve. And I think that's still like something that's super important to me to this day. Like I'm a really big advocate of pairing and of working collaboratively instead of, some people do this and they like working like this, but just, going off on their own and just like writing a bunch of code and then like not really talking to anyone. That's not really like my style, but I think that was definitely like influenced by the way that I learned how to code.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. And I saw that, I guess a year or more so ago, you were promoted into a senior. Can you tell me a little bit about what you think the difference is between more juniors who are fresh out of boot camp and somebody who's at your level, like a full senior at Shopify?
Yeah, a full senior. I think the biggest difference, and now I guess I have the perspective to sort of have an answer about it. I used to think that a senior was someone who just had like all the answers, who had dealt with, all the types of problems out there, who could pick up any technology like really quickly. But now I realize that the biggest difference now that I'm here in my career is no one really knows it all at any point. I mean, I certainly don't. I think the biggest difference is that as a senior, you can leverage your previous experience and the different problems that you've encountered before, different technologies, different challenges, and you can sort of leverage that previous experience into attacking, or a nicer word, I guess, of dealing with, your next project or that next big thing that you're working on. Whereas, yeah, as a junior or as someone who, is just coming out of a boot camp or just graduated from university, you maybe don't have that wealth of experience to sort of influence how you're going to come up with how you're gonna deal with your next project or whatever it is. So I guess in a way, it's just, you're just better able to connect the dots between the things that you've done before and like to apply that to what you're doing now. So I think that's probably like the biggest difference for me anyways.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it sounds like it's not necessarily about any specific knowledge, but more having kind of a framework at how to look at different types of problems. Yeah, that makes sense. I think it also kind of leads into my next question, which is, I heard that there's a good mentorship program at Shopify. And I think when you had mentioned it before, you also used the term jungle gym of experience, which I hadn't heard before. So I'd love to hear you expand on that and tell me a little bit about how that got started and what that means.
Yeah. So sort of a twofold answer. But yeah, within engineering at Shopify, we now have a formal mentorship program, which I think came about 2 years ago. So it was first started by a particular team, and it was just so successful that they were like, why don't we do this across engineering? Which is pretty crazy that we never really had something like that before. It was always more of like word of mouth, and oh, this person's a really good mentor. They're looking for, a new person to mentor, or oh, this person's looking for a mentor. And it was just like more of a networking sort of situation, which can be like quite intimidating, especially for someone who's, fresh out of school or junior, or who's new to a company. It's like, sure, you can leverage, your boss and some other people to help you with that. But now with this program, I think it's still run in 6-week increments. So it's short enough that it's not like too big of a time investment for any one party, but it's long enough that you can actually get through some of your goals. And then I participated in the first cohort, so both as a mentor and as a mentee. And for me, it was so beneficial because it was the first time I was signing up for officially to be someone's mentor. And I didn't think before that I had anything to contribute. And I really felt very insecure before that I took part in the program. And not only did I build like a relationship with the person I was mentoring, and we still talk to this day, but also it validated that I actually can impact someone's growth, and I actually have a lot to bring to the table. And on the flip side, the person who was mentoring me was a manager from another team, who actually came from like space engineering, like completely different background as me. And he was just such an amazing person, and also lead, that we had a lot of our conversations were more about like next steps in my career and career growth. And he just like gave me such a refreshing like perspective, and it sort of solidified for me like what I wanted to do next. Whereas before, I think I had often questioned whether I wanted to continue being a developer, like whether at Shopify or not. And that's where sort of like the jungle gym term comes in. And it's something that we talk a lot about at Shopify, which is just that we more so have like an approach of, your career here is sort of like a jungle gym. If, for example, I had moments where I was doubting continuing the engineering path. I was like, I may be more interested in doing like product stuff and maybe going down that path. There was like real openness there to be like, okay, sure. Like, do you want to like maybe shadow someone for a little while, or like work on this project that sort of needs another person? Maybe to help out. Or I've had friends move around from like completely different roles. Like I'm a designer and now I'm an engineer. You see stuff like that all the time at Shopify. And I think that really, that's why like we say, hey, this is like a jungle gym career type of place. Like whatever it is that you're interested in, there's not only like opportunities for that, but that is part of the culture. So there is a real amount of like support there as well. Like people, I haven't really seen anyone be like, oh no, like just leave if you want to do something else. Well, you gotta leave. Like hey, yeah, you're like a really unique individual that brings something special to the table. Oh, you're interested in this? Okay, cool. Let's see how we can like set you up with those opportunities. And that's like really special and rare. And I think that's why I've been here for so long. Even though, yeah, I've continued down the path of engineering, but in lots of different parts of the organization and like super different types of projects. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like it's great because you get to experience a lot of different things and you get to
Yeah,
see kind of what fits you best while you're always kind of building on something that will help you in whatever role you land in.
exactly. And we have also put in place lots of programs to sort of help with that, more formal programs. So just a small plug, I guess. But yeah, there's, for example, there's a program called the Apprentice Product Manager. So yeah, that's sort of exactly that route. Someone who's like, hey, I'm really interested in that. I'd love to sort of learn that career. Okay, cool. We actually have like an official program for that that you can be nominated for.
That's very cool. I feel like a lot of this kind of like ability to be flexible and to try and mentor people either in the path that they've chosen or a new path, like with this apprenticeship, all kind of speak to an inclusive culture in the workplace. Are there other things that you see happening that to you define like what an inclusive culture is, or what does an inclusive culture mean to you?
Yeah. I think an inclusive culture is not just, oh yeah, having people from different backgrounds and different experiences, having different experiences, which is definitely something that we see at Shopify. And it's also embracing differences. It's not just like, oh yeah, okay, we have these different people or these different ways of working, but it's not just the acceptance of it, but like, hey, we're like embracing this. And this is like something that we're running head first into as sort of like a path, both in terms of like the people that we hire and the people who are still here, but the ways in which we work. But I think a big part of it is more so than any other workplace I've been in. We do really have like such a diversity of people, not just like ethnicity, but also, yeah, experience in terms of experience. Like for me, yeah, coming from a boot camp, there are people who are also self-taught in the engineering org, or even in design or whatever it is, or people who had pretty much like next to no experience who did something completely different. Like even that manager that I was talking about who came from like space engineering stuff. And we're like, sure, okay, yeah. And we're like, yeah, okay, you're gonna bring like something new or like something completely different to the table. And we're embracing that like, fully. And that's like the special magic that makes us different than another workplace.
That sounds great. It sounds really nice to be in a place that really accepts and welcomes diversity of thought like that.
Yeah.
I also want to learn a little bit about the more technical side of your work. So can you tell me a little bit about a project that you're really proud of that you've worked on with Shopify?
Yeah, I'm lucky enough that I'm proud of, I've worked on lots of projects and I'm pretty proud of all of them. But I would say the one that I'm the most proud of is one that I did a couple of years ago, which was in the products area of Shopify. So of course, that's sort of like the heart and soul of our platform. Like if merchants don't have products to sell, you know, they don't have a store. But for pretty much since the beginning of the platform, the only media that helped merchants tell the story behind their products visually were images. And so we decided like, okay, we got to do something about this. Like we got to at least have native video support. And then we also decided to add 3D models, which is like a whole other world as well. But the interesting thing, technically, there's lots of stuff going on there. But for one, we had to make sure that our product images, which is sort of like the legacy code, was like something that was still working while we were adding all this new stuff to the code and trying to wrangle making the old and the new work together for a while, at least while we release stuff. But then also learning about how like storing videos and how video compression works, and we built a service around that. And then same thing for the 3D side of things. And then we also had to work, it was a collaboration between like my team and the AR VR team at Shopify, and then all these other teams as well, because this impacted like Shopify themes, the online store, lots of different areas. So it wasn't always easy having this many people involved, but it was also a really interesting project for that, and like having to collaborate across lots of different like priorities and getting to know like different people and seeing like, okay, how do we wrangle everyone together to make this project a success so we can actually release this to our merchants.
Yeah, that sounds super interesting. It sounds like there's a lot going on technically, and then you get to reach out to a lot of other teams, and it's a really critical path. So like, it's definitely very impactful. And I imagine there was just a ton of testing as well.
Oh yeah, and a lot of things going wrong, but we got there in the end. So.
That's great. Outside of work, is there anything else that you are really passionate about or that you really enjoy doing?
Yeah, I think, while there are some people who spend time outside of work still doing stuff around code or computers or tech, I'm sort of in the completely other spectrum of things. I really like spending time outside with my dogs. Before the pandemic, I went to the movies a lot. I'm really into cinema. I'm really into museums as well, and trying new restaurants and like food from all over the world. For me, it's what allows me to feel excited to come back to work, is like being inspired in all these different ways and sort of like feeding these different like parts of myself. And it's what allows me to feel balanced.
Yeah, that's great. I feel like balance can be really important.
Yeah, and that's what it looks like for me. And it can look like different things for other people. So yeah.
That's true. That's true. I guess my last question to you is, do you have any kind of pro tips for either people who are starting out their journey or maybe mid-level, but people other women who are in tech?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think loop back around to like the senior thing and the trajectory to there, I think there's like a mindset switch that really helped me along the way, which is, instead of thinking like, oh, I feel shame or I feel bad for not knowing something, or, oh, they're talking about something that I don't quite understand. And again, sorry, my dog is barking, feeling shame or feeling bad, or like, well, I'm not going to speak up or say anything, which I completely understand. To have the mindset of like, hey, I don't know something or I don't understand something, and it maybe has nothing to do with me. Like maybe this person is just not explaining it in a way that's digestible to me, and maybe I can just ask like, hey, this is how I like to learn how something works. Can you explain it to me in that way? And yeah, to come at it from a place of curiosity instead of a place of, oh, I feel shame for not knowing things or understanding. And just being gentle with yourself. You can't know the things that you don't know, and that just comes with time. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like it takes a little confidence maybe to get over this kind of imposter syndrome, but definitely the right attitude that can really help you.
Yeah. And I guess like on the flip side, the thing that helps, and I would say the hot tip I would give to other seniors is, yeah, if you can exemplify that behavior, and say it out loud, and juniors can see that of like, hey, I don't actually know, or like,
Right.
I don't know, let's figure it out together. I think the more that people see it, the more we can all be like saying, hey, I didn't understand, or I don't know. So I think that's equally important too, to like creating a culture in which juniors can feel comfortable saying, yeah, can you explain that again? Or I don't know.
Yeah, I really like that answer. I think that makes a lot of sense as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Also a part of like an inclusive culture, right? That's welcoming
exactly.
and beneficial for everyone, really.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time today, Jess. It was really nice to meet you.
Thanks, Darian.
And I hope you do well in the winter storm.
Thank you so much.